I'm Ryan. Some people hate conservatives.
I'm Ryan. Some people hate the liberals. We'll discuss their reasons when we return to beer and politics.
You know, Betty White really is the greatest Golden Girl. Choosy parents. Choose Jif. He's so mean. He really is. Hey Ryan, are we out of partisan again?
Gentlemen, let's start with conservatives. Why do people hate conservatives?
Might as well kick her off.
All right, go for it.
All right. So I want to start by saying that this is not all-encompassing of all conservatives. Basically, what we're trying to do here is, if you say, oh, I'm a conservative, someone goes, we're trying to kind of explain why that is. And, we don't want to lump too many people together, but this sentiment is kind of widespread. So people hate you because you claim to be smart, but you don't ask any questions. We look at the Muslim ban or torture, for instance.
Economics.
Yeah. I mean, I saw it on 24. Right? It's good.
Right.
It works. Or mass surveillance, for instance. All of these things that are intrusive. No questions. You claim to be strong, but you're super sensitive. He called me a name. Called me a bigot.
Reverse racism. That hurts my feelings. I'm just like you.
Yep. You claim to love the troops. You appropriate money for war. You're fine with that. But nothing about helping out once they get back. Because a meme saying help veterans doesn't do anything.
Well, they want to help veterans, but they also don't want socialized programs.
That would help veterans. You claim to love the Constitution, but just toss aside the part you don't like. How about the Fourth Amendment when it comes to stop and frisk in New York City? Thrown out because it was unconstitutional because of how it was applied. But it's not going to affect me. Just do it because it works, right? How about no one... not mad, happy, in fact, that the Supreme Court nominee Merrick Garland didn't get a hearing in Congress.
Yep.
That's great.
They took their time with that.
Yeah,
It didn't even happen. They took so long, it didn't happen.
Yeah, just wait for the next administration. No big deal. You claim to love capitalism and say that it provides opportunity for the poor people until the factories move out, which you're mad about now.
Right.
You support Made in America, but you want restrictions to be reduced so that you can pay people less than minimum wage because somehow that'll help the people making less than minimum wage make more money.
Including yourselves, by the way.
Right. You claim that your idea is the future, but everything looks to the past. See, we're here for a reason. It's because we've tried your ideas before. Since you're the conservatives, we've come past that. And we're trying things different now because what you did didn't work.
Right, to that point, the Civil Rights Act, it exists because opportunity didn't actually play out such that people of different religions and races actually had a fair opportunity.
Very interesting. Yes, yes. And on that same note, you actually claim you don't see race until there's a black person who's a main character on a TV show. 24, maybe.
Probably very upset about that.
Yeah, I actually heard Rush Limbaugh talking about James Bond, and I'm going to butcher his name. Idris Elba?
I think that's how it's Idris or Idris Elba.
Idris Elba. You know who I'm talking about. There's talk about him being the next James Bond, and Rush Limbaugh was getting bent out of shape because, what if Harriet Tubman was played by a white person in a movie? And the problem is that James Bond isn't a historical figure. His race actually doesn't matter to his character.
Correct.
Whereas if Harriet Tubman were white, things probably wouldn't have gone down the same way. You also don't see it until you think it's overrepresented on the courts. Maybe you're going to be treated unfairly. See, what really happens is you don't see race until you don't see your race. Yeah, and I think you treat anecdotes like they're the same thing as research. So everyone's opinion's equal and valid of the same word. Because hey, I saw a lazy guy and I said, hey, what's up? And he said, I'm on welfare. You're like, welfare people are lazy.
They're drug addicts because you knew two who were drug addicts.
Yeah.
So all of them are drug addicts.
That's true. That's true. And like the conservative senator who rails against gay rights until he realized that he has a gay son, and then all of a sudden gay people aren't monsters anymore.
Right.
See, you can't see past your own experiences, but you claim to have vision. You You expect people to believe you and take you at your word, but just cast aside the experiences of other people if you don't agree with them. You have an artificially inflated sense of your own self-importance and self-reliance, so much so that you are willing to break hundreds of years of blood and sacrifice that scaffold you to the greatness of this nation because you've convinced yourself you can walk on air. You've fed your emotions with hypocrisy and left your brain to starve. You have become a mass-produced theme park caricature of your former self, and you are convinced you're the Mona Lisa. Next round?
Cheers.
Cheers.
That's good. I'm actually going to jump on some of that when I start talking.
All right. What do you got, my friend?
So I want to make this point. Ryan already made this point, but I do want to say yet again that when we're talking about the conservatives, we're not talking about every single conservative. There are many factions. You got your Tea Party people, you got conservatives, you have Republicans, you have the alt-right, you have just some people who consider themselves conservatives because there's no other bucket to be in. So when we talk about why we hate conservatives or why people hate conservatives, you may reflect some of these or none of these, but you need to understand when they say I hate you because of the way you align, these are some of the reasons that we're talking about today.
The people you align with.
Right. So with that in mind, there are really two kind of major reasons, one of which, the first one, has kind of arisen since the rise of Trump. And it's this idea that they have, the conservatives have lost the ability to reason. All right. See, they don't understand words anymore, and that they have definitions, and that when you put them in a particular order, they create meaning. And when you rearrange them in the same words in a different order, there is different meaning, and there's intent. And arranging words in a sentence, then sentences into a paragraph or a phrase creates context. And they've simply lost control of this reasoning and this logic. They don't understand math and statistics and how they can be used to bolster an argument. And without them, your argument is not compelling, and they can be used to refute an argument. Their brains have debilitated since the rise of Trump, and people hate that because they can't have a discussion with you when that happens. So that's number one. Number two, and this is a larger one, and I don't think a lot of conservatives are going to like this, but it's basically that many of you are just un-American. All right, and you're un-American in two ways.
But they hold a lock on patriotism,
They
Ryan.
do. They do. They think they do, but I'm going to demonstrate how that's not true. First of all, they don't love Americans. All right, and Americans are what make America great. I said this in our minimum wage talk, and I'm going to repeat it again. It's the Americans that make America great. And if you don't love Americans and you're not willing to take care of them, you're being un-American. All right, so, in fact, the Republican Party, their platform talks about the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence like they're the cornerstones of the Republican Party. Well, those documents, while great and have lofty ideals, they're nothing without Americans demonstrating those ideals, committed to those ideals, protecting and defending those ideals. Otherwise, without that, they're just lofty words on a piece of paper floating about somewhere. All right? It's the Americans that make America great, and conservatives don't seem to care at all about them. They care more about capitalism than America. And I already made that point in the minimum wage discussion, that you can't care about both equally because capitalism doesn't give a damn about Americans. It's happy to watch them fail. And if left unchecked, it certainly lets them fail. It actually consumes them. And there's only a few at the top. There's actually only one at the top of the end of capitalism. And they love that more than Americans. They're happy to ship American jobs across the ocean to somebody else. They're happy to pay Americans less than a living wage. They don't care about minorities. They don't care about the marginalized. And they claim they do. And they put it under this umbrella of opportunity. Like, that's what we need. Listen, opportunity is important. But if you haven't given people an even playing field so they can grasp the opportunity, then it's not really helpful. And I'll give you a demonstration of what I mean here. So, Ryan, let's say you are a 7-foot tall guy.
Cool.
And I'm my current height of 5'7". And let's say in America, we each get a basketball every day. And if you dunk that basketball in a standard NBA size 10-foot rim, you get money. And if you don't, you don't. Would you say our opportunity is equal? We're both getting a basketball. Is it? Is our opportunity equal?
From a very, very academic standpoint, yes.
It's absolutely equal, and that's where the conservatives leave you. Is they're like, there, we gave you opportunity. Is one of us more likely to dunk the basketball than the other?
Well, clearly me.
Would you say you're at an advantage?
I would.
Would you say I'm at a disadvantage?
Compared to me, absolutely.
Sure, so you're going to dunk the basketball. I'm not going to dunk the basketball, unless what? Do you know what the unless is?
Unless you just work really hard.
No, that's not the unless. No, that's what they want you to believe. No, it's unless I get help. There's an option here that maybe I'm smarter than most, and I realized that there was nothing in the rules that said I can't use a ladder, but that presupposes I find a ladder, or that I have help from friends, and that presupposes I live in a community or have a family that's there to help me. But the bottom line is I need something, and you don't. And what we find is with all that opportunity, you will become wealthy, and I will not. And your wealth will beget wealth, and my poverty will beget poverty. So opportunity is what we're looking for here. We need the ability to grasp the opportunity, which is a level playing field. Now, the other thing they're going to say is, of course I care about Americans. Look at my immigration policies. I'm talking about the Muslim ban, and I'm talking about the people crossing the border. They're saying, we care about Americans. We're trying to protect them from terrorists, criminals, and rapists. But you know that's not true, because if you talk to them and you say, statistically, you don't really have any backing here, that the argument they'll come up with is, you wouldn't say that if that was your daughter or your wife or your mother being raped, killed, or blown up. But all that means is they care about their daughter, their wife, their mother. That's who they're worried about. It's selfish. They don't care about mine. They're trying to protect themselves. And they're protecting themselves based on, to your point in your discussion, based on not asking any questions and having anything to back up that reasoning. They do not care about Americans. They largely don't care about people. Let's just get that straight. Number two, they weave religion into politics. And they think that's okay. And I'm going to make this clear. By doing that, they are no different than the Muslim countries that they hate, that oppress women and minorities.
For religious reasons.
For religious reasons. Okay, so if I'm being fair, that's not entirely true. There are three main reasons. There are three things that separate them from those countries. So I'm going to lay them out for you. One, conservatives, the difference between them is when conservatives weave religion into their politics, they're doing it because their God demands them to do so. That's number one.
Okay.
Number two, the world would be a better place if they do. Okay? And number three is their God is righteous and they know better.
Okay.
So those are the main... Oh, I'm sorry. No, the Muslim countries feel the same way. Those aren't differences. They're exactly the same.
I was going to say. That sounds...
So it turns out the only difference is the conservative God is a Christian God. That's the only difference.
And then the white conservative God.
Yes.
Because let's be real. The Muslim God's also conservative.
He's very conservative. And then finally, they do it under this guise of that it's okay because of the Bill of Rights and the Constitution. And what I mean by that is they think that the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, is a list of things we're allowed to do, when in fact, they are a list of protections from the government. All right? The government where they're weaving their religion into politics, which, by the way, the First Amendment says Congress shall not establish a religion. And by weaving your religion in, you are doing just that. Now, if they argue that they're not doing that, we go back to my first point, where they've lost the ability to reason. So with that in mind, I'm going to have a recommended reading for them to help them be more likable, since people hate them. And that is the Constitution. Start with the Constitution. Read that. Number two, any book on reason, logic, truth tables, mathematics, anything like that would be helpful. Next round.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Actually, real quick, just thought of something. You mentioned weaving in religion, and that's one of the biggest things that people on the conservative side talk about hating. They're like, we don't want Muslims because they're trying to weave their religion in, right? And the thing that's really different about that, well, obviously we know the conservatives are trying to do it too. They're trying to weave it in. But the difference is that the Muslims can't, because they make up 1% of the United States. You can want all you want. Have a great time winning it over 1% of the U.S. The conservatives, I think it's 82% of the United States identifies as Christian.
That would be the majority.
So it is the majority.
Yeah.
So you actually have a disproportionate amount of power to do what you say, whether they want to do it or not.
That's right. And you, in fact, do.
All right.
All right.
Next talking point?
Yeah, next talking point. Madam Brewmaster.